Hi there, you're watching WION. Everyone's got wedding fever after all. It is the royal wedding taking place in Windsor this evening. We're cutting across right away to the St. George's Chapel in Windsor, where the guests have started to arrive for the wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. There was a quick shot of Victoria Beckham, and there they are, the power couple, if you will, Victoria Beckham and David Beckham arriving for the ceremony as well. Seen a slew of guests already show up. The quotient as far as the celebrity factor goes is already high. Amal and George Clooney, in addition, actor Idris Elba, and of course the whole cast of the show called Suits, which was of course Meghan Markle's singular piece. She was part of the cast. She's retired as an actress, of course, given her decision to marry the prince. And on your screens now, Amal Clooney and George Clooney, again another power couple. Amal Clooney and Meghan Markle are believed to be close friends, so it's quite obvious that they are there as part of a guest list. 600 people will watch Prince Harry and Meghan Markle exchange vows today. In addition, there are 1,200 guests who have been invited by the royal couple, to witness the vows from right outside St. George's Chapel. Let me go across to my colleague Mandy Clark, who's joining us live on the broadcast from Windsor itself, to talk a little bit more about all the fanfare and the festivities there in Windsor. Mandy, it's a big day for England, no doubt. The wedding coming after Kate Middleton and Prince Williams. That too was an immensely watched spectacle, if you will. How's the mood there in England?
It's very celebratory. We're seeing waves of people come down this way, buying flags. They're coming from all over, not just all over the UK, but there's people who flew in from Australia, all over the Commonwealth, just to celebrate this day. So certainly it has resonance. And Harry and Meghan are seen as really a modern couple. There's a lot of goodwill and good feeling that she brings, a lot of modernity, being from a foreign country, being mixed race. People see it as a real modern couple that reflects modern Britain. Also, she is herself very warm and has that common touch, and people have already started liking her to what would have been her mother-in-law, Princess Diana. So there's a lot of warm feeling, well wishes here in Windsor as people start streaming in. The city has been more or less blocked off. There's security forces, almost an equal measure of the number of people coming to watch and celebrate the day.
All right, stay with me, Mandy. On the phone line with me also is Sarah Gristwood, a royal historian, joining us on the phone line from the United Kingdom. Sarah, good afternoon. Thank you for taking time to speak with us here at WION. Everyone, of course, is agog over the visuals. Lots of hats, lots of high heels and high fashion there in Windsor. But I want to ask you a few questions I'm sure that are on people's minds right now. What about the prince and his choice of wardrobe today? What is the significance of what he decides he's going to wear for the wedding?
Well, it is likely to be uniform. Of course, you know, he saw active service as an officer in the British Army. But in any case, the men of the royal family tend to wear these rather wonderful uniforms. What I like is that we hear the dress code for this wedding for men said no medals and no swords, because of course often military uniform would include a ceremonial sword.
Of course. And we were given to believe a little while earlier that the royal titles have been announced for both Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Can you help us understand the significance of the titles, and especially of being titled Duke and Duchess of Sussex?
Yes, it's strange, isn't it? Because to most people, a prince and princess sounds grander than a duke and duchess. But dukes, the royal dukes, have a very special place in English history. And to be created a duke means that you are to have a say in the governing of the realm. So traditionally, the royal princes have been given the title of a dukedom or an earldom on the day they marry. And indeed, the Queen has done this again today.
Right. And if I can ask you, Sarah, also, we're hearing a lot about how Meghan Markle is a modern royal bride, if you will. She's unconventional in many ways. But there are certain traditions, I suppose, that can't be messed with, can't be broken with. Can you help us understand some of the most significant aspects of the wedding ceremony that are likely to be retained, even though this is an unconventional royal couple?
Yeah. Well, in a way, this has to be the traditional English Anglican church ceremony. So the basic format of the marriage doesn't change. But that said, this couple are putting their own slightly modern spin on it. They'll use a slightly more modern form of words. The bride will not promise to obey her groom. Of course, Kate and Diana did not promise to obey. And things like she's going to enter the church alone, we hear, walk halfway down the aisle before, in the absence of her father, Prince Charles escorts her the rest of the way.
Okay. And what does the royal wedding mean for Britain today? Britain in the 21st century, we know that there are traditions that are, a rich part of the British culture. But for the British people, what does it mean to see Prince Harry marry Meghan Markle today?
I think, firstly, everyone is very happy for Prince Harry. In the last few years, after a slightly wild youth, he's become an enormously popular royal. And recently, of course, he has spoken about some of the trauma he suffered early in his life, with his mother's death and the problems that caused him. So I think, firstly, everyone's just very glad to see him happy at last. But also, a royal wedding is a huge boost for Britain, the mood, and even for the British economy. They say it's going to, add create £1 billion worth of actual business and of, tourism and so on.
Absolutely. Before I let you go, I'm looking at the visuals right now on the screen from Windsor, and I have to ask you about this grand display of hats that we're getting to see. Everyone, all the women at least, seem to be wearing fascinators, wearing hats. Is there a reason why? Is there a particular tradition why women choose to wear hats on occasions such as these?
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, not so long ago, I think women would have worn a hat to any wedding. But certainly for a royal wedding. In fact, I'm fairly sure the dress code for invited guests actually stipulated that they should do.
All right.
Because traditionally, women were supposed to cover their heads in church.
Sarah Gristwood, thank you for joining us this afternoon and sharing with us that view from England. It's filled in a lot of gaps for some of us who are watching this grand display of fashion and, of course, couture that we're getting to see coming out of Windsor. A lot of people gathered there for the royal wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Remember, the bride and groom, we'll probably get first shots of them in about an hour from now, but everyone has to be seated in the next 45 minutes or so. The last person to arrive before Meghan herself, of course, will be the Queen Elizabeth II. She will arrive at about 4:29 p.m. Indian Standard Time, to be followed shortly by Meghan Markle. So you know that you're going to get all the latest from Windsor right here on WION. In fact, we're getting you live updates from the ground itself. My colleague Mandy Clark continues to be with us. She's in Windsor as part of the madness, I'm sure, Mandy, on the streets there, the excitement of seeing Prince Harry and Meghan Markle tie the knot. How does this compare to, let's say, the celebrations and the fervour around Kate and Williams' wedding a few years ago?
It seems to have taken a different dimension. People were really very happy for William and Kate, and she was and still is a very popular princess. But there is a different dimension that Meghan Markle brings. First of all, Harry has been seen as the bachelor prince for a very long time, so it's seen as they finally found someone who he met his match. And also she's seen as very modern. She's someone that people can relate to. So certainly even though she comes from a different country, she's really embraced British culture, and the British public have really embraced her. So we're seeing people coming from all over the UK just to be here in Windsor, which is not a huge town, to line the streets. It's expected to be a beautiful sunny day, which is not always the case here in Britain. And not just in the UK, they're coming from all over the world. There's people from Australia. We've seen Canadians come here. So it seems like many of the people from the Commonwealth, and also there's a great interest coming from the United States because it's an American princess they will have.
Indeed. And of course, we're getting to see some fantastic images from Windsor. In fact, we just saw a guest getting a bit of a reprimand from the guard outside the chapel. There is this beautiful display of leaves and flowers that has been erected at the entrance to St. George's Chapel. And a guest was, I suppose, trying to get up close and personal with a couple of flowers there and had to be told not to do so. So this is, at the end of the day, let's not forget, a wedding that involves royalty. So there is protocol that is on display. Sarah Gristwood was speaking with us a short while ago, British historian. She said that members of the military who are attending, or former members of the military who are attending, are expected to show up in their uniforms, of course, without swords and medals. The same can be expected, I suppose, from Prince Harry. There is speculation about which military uniform he'll choose to wear. Remember, his brother did the same when he married Kate Middleton in 2011. Prince Harry, of course, has also served with the forces. Pippa Middleton on your screens right now, Kate Middleton's sister, and her husband and brother also there on our screens. The yellow hat under which is Amal Clooney, international human rights lawyer, and her husband George Clooney, who is an actor. Let's go back to Mandy Clark, who's with us from Windsor. Mandy, I'm going to just keep talking to you as these visuals play out, because they tell the story in many ways in itself. This is, after all, the coming together of tradition and modernity in Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, of Britain and the United States. So it's a transatlantic romance that is being fulfilled on our screens as we speak, and I suppose the guest list reflects that in many ways.
Yes, there has been reports that Priyanka Chopra, who's well known to be a good friend of Meghan Markle, was in London, so it's every expectation she'll be at the wedding as well. So it's interesting where the guest lists come from. They reflect the United States, but also the international angle of both couples. She's also a charity worker, so they really made a point of having the public who were invited, that 1,200 people, were members of the public who have done amazing charity works. They decided not to include politicians, and that has been a step change in other weddings where there was always pressure to include heads of state. So it seems like a far more personal wedding that reflects their values rather than, but still having all the pomp and ceremony that you can expect with a royal wedding. Everyone's very excited, of course, about her dress. There's not been a word about who's designed the dress, and so that will be definitely the prime focus of the wedding. But in many ways, Britain is excited about this wedding. They look like a couple that are just deeply in love, and lots of people are happy for them. Prince Harry has a special place in the British public. He's seen as having more of a common touch, and certainly so does his bride. She's a mixed race. She represents a modern America and also a modern Britain. So there is a lot of good feeling, goodwill here on the streets.
Absolutely, and it's interesting you brought up the dress. It's amazing how everyone's managed to keep the designer and the design under wraps so far, despite the intense media scrutiny on the wedding, the preparations, and unfortunately a bit more than perhaps was necessary as far as Meghan Markle's family and extended family goes. We'll get to that in a bit. Mandy, stay with me. Since you brought up the dress, let's take our viewers through what the others wore, is how we're putting it. Meghan Markle is going to wear when she walks down the aisle is still a big question mark. It's been a well-guarded secret so far, but we can tell you what other royal brides have chosen to wear over the years. The Queen Mother married King George VI in 1923, wearing a drop-waist embroidered silk gown designed by Madame Hanley Seymour, who was a former court dressmaker for Queen Mary. Bridal tiaras weren't common back then, and instead she chose a veil which covered her whole head. Now, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip married in 1947, and since rationing was still around after World War II, she purchased the material for her wedding dress using coupons. She wore an ivory silk dress designed by Norman Hartnell, which was embroidered with 10,000 white seed pearls, silver thread, sparkling crystals and transparent applique tulle embroidery. Her sister, Princess Margaret, married Anthony Armstrong Jones in 1980, wearing a silk organza dress designed by Norman Hartnell and the Baltimore tiara. 21 years later, Prince Charles wed his first wife, Lady Diana Spencer, in a televised ceremony. Princess Diana wore an ivory silk taffeta and antique lace gown, with a dramatic 25-foot-long train made by David and Elizabeth Emanuel. Large puff sleeves and full skirt became popular in the 80s, and many brides decided to copy Princess Diana's wedding dress style. Prince Charles married a second time. He got married to Camilla Parker Bowles in 2005. It was also her second marriage. The bride wore an embroidered pale blue and gold coat over a matching chiffon gown designed by Robinson Valentine, which is now solely Anna Valentine, and golden feathers in her hair for the blessing at St. George's Chapel. And Prince Harry's elder brother, Prince William, married Kate Middleton in 2011. Her wedding dress has now become one of the most iconic wedding gowns. Designed by Sarah Burton for Alexander McQueen, the long-sleeve lace dress featured a satin bodice and a silk tulle skirt. Her bridal train measured just under 9 feet, and she wore the Queen's Cartier halo tiara and diamond earrings. All right, back to St. George's Chapel. Visuals from inside the chapel now, where guests have gathered, a number of them already there to attend the wedding, of course. We're given to understand that all guests are expected to be seated in the next half an hour or so. They're trying to stick to time schedules as much as possible. 4:29 p.m. IST is when the Queen is expected to arrive, and shortly after, Meghan Markle, the bride herself. Now, Meghan's bridesmaids and page boys are going to be all children this time around. They're going to include Harry's elder brother's 2 children, that is Princess Charlotte and Prince George. Now, just hours from now, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, or I shouldn't even say hours, actually, it's a little under that, another hour and 15 to 20 minutes, and we should see things get underway at St. George's Chapel. The two of them will take their vows. It's a big day for not just the couple, but the guests of honor too. The Indian actor Priyanka Chopra is attending the wedding. A close friend of Meghan Markle, Chopra is one of the bridesmaids. Now, our colleague Akanksha Swaroop brought us a few details earlier on from the social media desk to tell us a little bit more about what Priyanka Chopra is up to while she is in Britain. All right, we'll get to Akanksha in just a bit, but Priyanka Chopra, who is pretty active on Instagram, on social media, has been keeping her fans updated. Elton John on your screens, a quick segue there. Elton John, of course, Sir Elton John, he's been an intrinsic part of the royal family's celebrations. Amal Clooney, international human rights lawyer, on your screens as well. We're given to understand that she and the bride are good friends. And let me go across to my colleague Akanksha Swaroop. She's with us. Akanksha, I guess the last time I said we're going to you and we didn't get you is because you're busy watching what's happening there in Windsor. Give us an update on the celebrity factor, who all have arrived. And Priyanka Chopra, what's her role in all of this? We know that she's friends with Meghan Markle, but is she actually part of the wedding party?
Right, Aisha, this is indeed a grand spectacle, as we can see live visuals being streamed from Windsor Castle in England. And as you rightly mentioned, a host of celebrities are thronging this event. And, some time ago we saw chat show host Oprah Winfrey also grace the venue. Apart from Oprah, we also are aware of the fact that Amal and George Clooney will be a part of the wedding ceremony. Apart from them, there will the Spice Girls and yes, the star cast of Suits will also be a part of the wedding ceremony. And as you mentioned, Priyanka Chopra is, of course, an integral part of the wedding ceremony. She arrived yesterday in the UK, and she also shared some pictures as she arrived, or she shared these pictures on her Instagram handle. And we all know that Priyanka and Meghan share a very special bond. It dates back to January 2016 when they first met at a celebration dinner hosted by Elle. And since then they hit it off pretty well, and they continue to meet in Canada. After that, we know that they both have spoken of each other very fondly to various publications and at various talk shows. It was at Jimmy Fallon's talk show recently that Priyanka admitted that she will be a part of this wedding. And as much as Jimmy Fallon tried to probe into the details of this wedding ceremony, she remained a very sincere friend, and she refused to divulge any details of the wedding ceremony. It was recently that she also wrote a piece on Meghan Markle in the Times magazine, where she complimented Meghan for the terrific human being that she is, and that she will beautifully complement Prince Harry. So there we go. There you go. You know, they have been sharing a very, very special bond. It's little surprise why rumors of her being one of the bridesmaids was also doing the rounds.
Right.
And even though she's not a bridesmaid, she is, of course, an integral part of the entire family, because if anybody who visits there, who visits Priyanka Chopra's Instagram handle, will be witness to how actively she is involved.
Absolutely.
Be it, arranging for a costume for this wedding, or being a part of the family and friends who have all arrived to be a part of Meghan's wedding. So clearly Priyanka's role is, of course, very, very important. Let's not forget that various other states of head have not been invited to the wedding.
Akanksha. Indeed, as you're pointing out, Priyanka Chopra, not a bridesmaid, but definitely an integral part of the guest list. I mean, and she's there on our screens. There we go. Priyanka Chopra making her way over to St. George's Chapel. She's wearing a lavender dress, if I'm not mistaken, if that's the right way to describe that particular hue of purple. And she is flanked by a number of friends. I'm not very certain of who they are. We'll try and get you more names in just a bit. But Priyanka Chopra, the Indian celebrity factor, I should add, at this wedding, also arriving there at St. George's Chapel. Mandy Clark also with us, Akanksha Swaroop. We're trying to get you as many details as possible about the wedding. But Mandy, as you mentioned a little while back, despite all the details we've been able to share with our viewers, the decision on the designer remains a big question mark even now. But why is it so significant? Why is everyone so tuned into who's going to end up, or who already has designed Meghan Markle's wedding dress?
She is seen as a style icon as soon as she became to the public spotlight. So you can expect whatever dress she picks will likely be bespoke, be tailor-made just for her, but knockoffs will happen right away, and that designer will see a boost in sales. We saw after Kate Middleton, even when she wore her engagement dress, it sold out within minutes, and that company struggled to meet up with demand. So it's a massive boost for the designer. It'd be interesting to know whether she chooses a British designer or an American designer. That's certainly the speculation. A lot of the fashion tabloids. Will she be representing her home country or embracing her new one? She might surprise everybody and pick a totally different designer. But it's all, in all likelihood, it will be something quite graceful. Certainly Kate Middleton's dress was overwhelmingly loved by the public. And so we'll just have to wait and see what dress, which designer she gets to choose from. It will definitely be a boost to that designer if she has given them, whoever she gave, the honor of creating that dress for her.
Absolutely. And as you were speaking, we had a quick visual of some more members of the Suits star cast. Serena Williams, the former world number one tennis player, also there with her husband, the co-founder of Reddit. Alex Ohanian. So Serena Williams and Meghan Markle, remember, also good friends. So tennis celebrity, tech celebrity, television celebrity, all there in full numbers at this wedding. Also Sarah Rafferty, another member of the Suits star cast, was on our screens a short while ago, as was James Corden. He is walking in as we speak with his wife. James Corden, of course, the host of a popular late night television show in the United States. So it's a real mix there of the celebrity quotient that is taking place. Sarah Gristwood, a royal historian, is back with us on the phone line from London to talk a little bit more about what's happening there at St. George's Chapel. Speaking of the chapel, Sarah, the significance, please, if you can, for our viewers here in India and South Asia. Why is Windsor so important, and why St. George's Chapel, where Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles also exchanged vows?
Well, it's a good question, because the point is that Windsor is really the heartland for the royal family. Buckingham Palace is like their office, Windsor is like their home. So to be married there, on the one hand, it's a bit of a break, because, you know, more recent big royal weddings have been in London at Westminster Abbey or St. Paul's. So this, if you can believe it, feels a tiny bit more private. But at the same time, it places them in the absolute centre of royal historic tradition, which is quite important when bride is very untraditional in some ways.
Indeed. And as far as the ceremony goes, Sarah, what should we expect once the Queen has arrived? What happens next, and how long will the entire process of marrying the two of them take?
It takes about an hour. As you said earlier, the Queen traditionally is always the last person, the last guest to arrive. So right after her, we will start looking for the bride. She'll enter alone, we hear, unusually. Halfway up the aisle, Prince Charles will join her, though he won't officially give her away. And that's quite important, because it means that, traditionally, historically, a bride was handed from one man to another, almost like a piece of property. And she obviously didn't want to do that. Then it will be the Anglican service, although, of course, there is, there's the American cleric, Michael Curry, coming over to speak. And there will be a pause when the bride and groom and several most important guests disappear from sight for a moment to sign the register before reappearing and coming back down the aisle.
And we are given to understand that there is a special mention to Prince Harry's mother, Diana, also a plan for this afternoon. Can you give us more details on that?
Well, there's a number of references. Of course, there have been right from the bride's ring, but in the choice of music in some ways references. Of course, we've just seen Elton John arriving. He very famously played at Princess Diana's funeral, and we gather will be playing again this afternoon.
Right, Sarah Gristwood there in London. Thank you for that perspective. We will, of course, get back to you as the wedding unfolds there at St. George's Chapel in Windsor. But Sarah there pointing out for us the significance of Windsor. If London and Buckingham Palace and, of course, Westminster Abbey is seen as the official symbols of the British monarchy, Windsor is as much about home, I suppose, in a way, balancing what has been termed an untraditional and unconventional wedding, including the bride herself. While we've been talking with Sarah, a number of people, Priyanka Chopra there on your screens, chatting with Amal Clooney and George Clooney. Number of members of the Suits star cast have arrived, including the man who plays Meghan Markle's on-screen husband, Patrick J. Adams. He and his wife were trying to figure out, I think, which way to enter the chapel from. Serena Williams, tennis celebrity, tennis royalty in her own right there on your screens, with her husband, Alex Ohanian, the founder of Reddit. As I was mentioning earlier, it is an amalgamation of tech royalty, tennis royalty, what have you, and television royalty. Sarah Ferguson arriving at the scene as well. Fergie, as she's popularly known, is also attending the wedding as was expected. So everyone now coming together for this grand celebration of royalty, celebrity, what have you. So Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, the former wife of Prince Andrew, Duke of York, who is, remember, the second son of Queen Elizabeth II, and Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, has also arrived at the wedding. Her two daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie of both of York, will also, of course, be part of the wedding celebrations. So Sarah Ferguson, one of the first members of the royal family to be seen arriving at St. George's Chapel for the wedding. She is the former wife of Queen Elizabeth's second son. All right, so lots of color on our screens. Let me go back to Mandy Clark, who was standing by in Windsor itself, part of all the celebrations. Mandy, we're getting glimpses of the royal family and members of the extended family now arriving, and of course the members of the Suits star cast. So I suppose a part of Meghan Markle's family, television family, also showing up. But coming back to Windsor itself, how exactly has the town been gearing for the wedding? A lot of security, I suppose.
Absolutely. So as soon as it was announced, the security services went into full swing. That, as you point, it's not just royalty; it's power couples, it's TV stars. You couldn't get a more alluring target for terrorists. So there is almost equal measure of security as there are well-wishers. Of course, they're a bit behind the scenes. They don't want to ruin the day, but it's been a complex security procedures that security forces have been working hard on. All the main roads in Windsor is completely closed off for the day, also to allow all the well-wishers and fans that are coming in from all over the UK to line the streets after they get married. The couple will do a tour and greet some of the people who've been camping out for a week just to catch a glimpse of them. So there's a lot of excitement and fanfare, but certainly a complex security procedure that is taking place. There's visible security presence, and of course there's going to be a lot of stuff we can't see where they're keeping an eye on anything.
And Mandy, you're going to walk away with a wonderful tan. I think the sun out there in Windsor looks absolutely wonderful, and you've been talking about how the weather has played its part in all of this as well. Everyone knows quite well how erratic weather in England can be, so the sun holding up for the wedding as well.
Yeah, it's due to stay a sunny day. Even just 2 days ago, they were promising a bit of rain, but it's just how changeable UK weather can be. But so far, so good, and it's looking to be a sunny day all day long. There's going to be all over the country, not just here in Windsor. Of course, Windsor has got most of the crowds. They're heading to line the streets now, but all over the country, they're holding what's known as street parties here, or street teas, where they celebrate royal occasions. So if people can't make it to Windsor, they're going to have they'll close down their own road or street and bring out cups of tea, maybe some champagne, buns. So it's a very festive mood all over the country, not just here in Windsor.
Absolutely. You're painting a perfect picture, picnic-like picture for us, and I guess everyone, the excitement is palpable for everyone. Stay with me, Mandy, a while longer. Let me just quickly take our viewers through some other aspects of the wedding. Before we do, though, of course, Serena Williams, former world #1 tennis player, multiple Grand Slam winner, of course, a celebrity in her own right, her husband Alex Ohanian, James Corden and Amal Clooney, everyone there on your screens, power couples on the house, if you will, at Windsor right now. Now, just moments before the wedding takes place, remember there was an announcement earlier in the day about the titles for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. The announcement read, I quote, "The Queen has today been pleased to confer a dukedom on Prince Harry of Wales. His titles will be Duke of Sussex, Earl of Dumbarton and Baron Kilkeel." Now that, of course, will be his Scottish title. Prince Harry thus becomes His Royal Highness the Duke of Sussex, and Miss Meghan Markle, on marriage, will become Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex, end quote. Now, both of them, that is Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, have chosen Cleve & Company to make their wedding rings. Miss Markle's ring has been fashioned from a piece of Welsh gold gifted to her by Her Majesty, the Queen of England, Elizabeth II. Meanwhile, Prince Harry's ring will be a platinum band with a textured finish. Both rings were crafted in the Cleve workshop. Remember, it's quite unlike royal tradition for Prince Harry to retain the ring. He will be wearing his wedding band, a choice that both his brother and Prince Charles have an exercise. It's not common to see male members of the British royalty wearing jewellery of any kind. But the rings will be carried to St. George's Chapel on the day of the wedding by the Duke of Cambridge in his capacity as best man. If you're trying to figure out who that is Prince William, Harry's elder brother, who has, of course, been named the best man. Miss Markle, on the other hand, is not going to have a maid of honour. She's only going to have bridesmaids and page boys, all of whom will be children, including Prince William's son, Prince George, and daughter, Prince Charlotte. After Prince Harry and his bride-to-be, Meghan Markle, pronounced their vows in front of their wedding guests, the young couple will then embark on a royal tour. As a married couple, they'll be on board an open-air carriage that will start from St. George's Chapel on to Castle Hill. They'll be greeting the crowds who are waiting for them along the High Street and King's Road before they turn into the mile-long road for what is known as the Long Walk. The procession will end at St. George's Chapel eventually. Right, and Mandy Clark is also on hand for us in Windsor. She's witnessing firsthand the visuals there of excitement in the streets of Windsor. I suppose that is going to be the high point for a lot of people who are gathered, Mandy, in Windsor, when Prince Harry and Meghan make their way around the city to say thank you to everyone who's gathered there as well-wishers.
Yeah, absolutely. There's people who have been here for almost a week, and the police had said there's no tents allowed, and so people chose just to sleep on the ground just to hold their spot, prime spot, when they do their tour of Windsor. So you can expect a lot of excitement. We are seeing loads of flags, people from all over. But it's interesting that you point out he will be one of the first royals to wear a wedding ring, and that's another sign of modernity. Lots of people feel like they can relate to Harry. He's a prince who's talked about the trauma. He's had the mental health problems after he lost his mother. People feel like he's someone they can relate to, that he's one of us. So that's the overwhelming feeling you're getting amongst the public. And so they're wishing him all the best and coming from all over just to celebrate his big day. His bride as well has been openly welcomed here in Britain, and they want to make her feel welcome too. So we are expecting very excited crowds as they do that procession after they get married.
Absolutely. And Prince Harry has, of course, redeemed himself in a big way in the public eye. There were those wild years, as I suppose every adolescent goes through, but unfortunately for him, they were in the public eye pretty much the whole time, following his mother's death also. So, but I suppose his stint with the military has redeemed him in many ways with the public, which is why there is so much excitement over the wedding. We'll be back with you, Mandy, in just a second. But speaking of the fans, there are more than 100,000 people who've gathered on the streets of Windsor to catch a glimpse of the royal couple. Fans covered thousands of miles to attend this wedding. It's one of the most anticipated of the year. Everyone was dressed in finery to rival the royals, some even seen wearing suits and sunglasses with the British flag on them. While one of the royal fans who hoped to outshine Harry's grandmother, the Queen Elizabeth, wore a crown and sash as well. So look at those visuals on your screen. It just goes to show how excited everyone is about this wedding in England and elsewhere in the world as well. Now, with last-minute preparations being made, some of the royal fans had some marriage advice for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Listen in to some of what was said. And we have an update coming in right now. We're given to believe that Prince Harry has left his hotel room and is on his way to Windsor for his own wedding. So Prince Harry is going to arrive before the bride, of course. Sarah Gristwood, the British royal historian who was speaking with us a while back, was telling us that it is, as per protocol, Queen Elizabeth II who will be the last guest to arrive on the scene. The British monarch will be the last guest who will enter the chapel. Everyone else will be inside and seated by that time. That's about 4:29 p.m., about 40 minutes from now. Also, the former British Prime Minister John Major and his wife have also arrived at St. George's Chapel. This wedding has been as much about the people who have been invited as about the ones who've been left off the guest list. Some interesting names have not made the cut. We're talking about the British Prime Minister, Theresa May herself, who isn't part of the list of invitees. Neither is the former US President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle. Remember, they have been photographed and believed to have shared a warm relationship with Prince Harry, specifically in context of his Invictus Games. So Few quick updates for those of you who are joining us on the broadcast. So guests have started arriving in big numbers at St. George's Chapel. Remember, everyone should be seated in the next 5 or 7 minutes. The royal family, and I'm talking about Queen Elizabeth II, Prince Charles, Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, and other members of the royal family are expected to make their way across to Windsor Castle at about 3:50 p.m. a short while from now. By that time, I suppose most of the members of the invited guest list will be seated inside St. George's Chapel. These include, of course, a number of Suits co-stars of Meghan Markle, the Clooneys, the Beckhams, Priyanka Chopra, Serena Williams, her husband Alex Ohanian, the television talk show superstar Oprah Winfrey are all among those who have gathered for the wedding. In about 15 minutes from now is when we'll probably get our first glimpse of members of the royal family as they start entering St. George's Chapel. Inside, the pews, of course, are already filling up. Kate Middleton's sister, Pippa, and her husband and brother are all there already. Sarah Ferguson, also already part of the members of the invited list who are inside. And as we watch these grand visuals of high fashion as they make their way into St. George's Chapel, let me go back to my colleague Mandy Clark, who continues to be with us from Windsor. Mandy, I'm looking at these visuals and it seems like it's a long walk to get into the chapel. Is this also partly on purpose for the members of, the public who've been invited by Harry and Meghan to attend the wedding so that they get the full flavor of everyone who's attending the wedding inside the chapel?
It is certainly, it's known as the long mile. It is a long walk. It's beautifully done. It does give that opportunity. People really enjoy, get a glimpse of everyone. So it's a perfect location really for the wedding, and it couldn't be on a better day. There was worry earlier on in the week that the weather might not cooperate, but that certainly doesn't seem to be the case. So for all the members of the public that they have invited, those 1,200 who've contributed to society, that is their passion. Charity work, making a difference. That's why they chose these people rather than politicians like Donald Trump. Theresa May didn't get the invite, and it's quite refreshing. It also provides the members of the public, the thousands who've come down to Windsor just to catch a glimpse of them, to see a bit more. Windsor Castle, of course, a bit on a hill, so it gives a nice vantage point for lots of people to see. Also, it makes it a complex security nightmare. So police and security forces have been working around the clock to make it as safe and enjoyable as possible.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, I think it's important to point out for our viewers that it's been a conscious choice to keep politics out of all of this. Remember, Meghan Markle also will have to tone down her views when it comes to things as far as in the public domain goes. She is, of course, a vocal human rights and women's rights activist, as an animal rights activist as well. But speaking of some of the guests, a quick word on John Major, who is perhaps one of the most recognizable faces as far as the British political landscape goes. He was the former Prime Minister of the country. The choice, though, for him to attend the wedding, there is a reason behind it. He was Prince Harry and Prince William's guardian after the death of their mother, Princess Diana. He's at the wedding today. British royal weddings, as I was pointing out for our viewers a short while back, are usually affairs of state where presidents and prime ministers do come in contact with the European monarchs. But as far as Windsor today goes, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have decided not to invite political leaders, as Mandy was pointing out for us, unless, of course, they are dear friends of either of the couple. Now, this includes John Major, who became Prince Harry's guardian after his mother's death in 1997. All right, that looks like a grand vehicle making its way across to Windsor. Let's hold up a second. Let's try and peek through the windows and figure out who's inside in that magnificent car. Remember, I was telling you there are reports now telling us that Prince Harry and other members of the royal family are going to make their way across to the chapel shortly. Oh, that's the bride herself and her mother, Doria Raglan. The two of them, they're heading out of the hotel where they've been staying together since Doria Raglan arrived in the United Kingdom. So Meghan Markle, the bride-to-be, is on her way to the wedding. She's wearing a veil, her face is covered and her hair is up. Still can't say for certain though what the dress is looking like and of course who's designed it. So all eyes now on the royal wedding. We're just about 40 minutes away from the start, if you will, of the ceremony when Meghan will enter St. George's Chapel by herself, breaking with tradition. As Sarah Gristwood, the royal historian, was pointing out for us a short while back, this whole talk about Prince Charles giving her away, that too is not true. This is something that a piece of tradition that she's done away with. Her father, remember, will not be able to participate in the wedding on account of ill health. She's asked Prince Charles to escort her for a part of the walk up the aisle, but he will not be giving her away. So the bride is on her way. Where is the groom? That is, I think, Prince Andrew, who we just got a glimpse of making his way. Or was that Prince Edward? We'll just figure it out for you. But in the meantime, Princess Margaret, or Princess Anne, pardon me, there also for the wedding. She is, of course, remember, Queen Elizabeth II's only daughter, the sister of Prince Charles, the aunt to Prince Harry and Prince William. So Princess Anne already at the wedding. Prince Edward a short while back entering as well. So members of the royal family now well and truly arriving at the scene at St. George's Chapel. Things going according to plan. And that looks like Zara Phillips. I could be mistaken. Let's quickly check back with trusty Google to figure out if that is indeed Zara Tyndall. Indeed, that is a cousin of Prince Harry's, also at the wedding. Right, Zara Ann Elizabeth Tyndall is a British equestrian and the second child and only daughter, pardon me, of Anne, Princess Anne, and her first husband, Captain Mark Phillips. So Zara Phillips is how she was known earlier. She's there with her husband, Mike Tyndall, who is believed to be a good friend of Prince Harry as well. Meghan Markle is on her way for the wedding, but it looks like in true bride-like fashion, she seems to be running a little behind on the clock. Remember, she was supposed to leave at about 11 a.m. British time because the drive from her hotel to Windsor Castle takes about half an hour. Princesses Eugenie and Beatrice of York, they're arriving as well. But Meghan Markle has just departed from her hotel. It takes about half an hour, so she should be there in the nick of time. Remember, she is going to be the last person to enter the chapel by herself, mind you. Another attempt perhaps at breaking with tradition. A number of people have described Meghan Markle as a feminist, somebody who believes passionately in women's rights. Her decision, therefore, to not be given away by Prince Charles to Prince Harry is significant to note. As Sarah Gristwood, the British royal historian, was telling us a short while ago, this process of the father of the bride handing the bride over to another male, another man in the groom, is often considered a vestige of the past, something that Meghan Markle has decided to do away with. Right, Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew's daughters, Eugenie and Beatrice, there on your screens, as is, of course, a number of people who have made it for the wedding, members of the British royal family. Princess Anne, Prince Charles's sister, Queen Elizabeth's only daughter, also attending this ceremony. Princess Anne and her second husband, Timothy Lawrence, on your screens right now. Remember, Princess Anne was earlier married to Mark Phillips. That marriage ended in divorce. Their daughter, Zara Phillips Tyndall, is also attending the wedding. We had a glimpse of her a short while ago. She's an equestrian and a good friend, in addition to being cousins with Prince Harry. So these particular pews are very close to the nave of the church, and in fact, with a bird's eye view of where the vows will be taking place, of course, filling up with members of immediate family of the royal family of the United Kingdom. A gorgeous sunny day there in Windsor. The weather doesn't always keep up its end of the bargain when it comes to England, but as Mandy Clark, my colleague, was pointing out for us a short while ago, and she was sunning herself too, giving us a live. A quick dip in with Mandy before we get back to proceedings inside St. George's Chapel. Mandy, Meghan Markle has just departed from the hotel. Is she running late? Wasn't she supposed to leave a little while earlier?
It seems that perhaps she was a bit delayed. That's not unusual for a bride, and of course it is her day. So, but yes, according to the schedule, Meghan is in keeping up with tradition, bride fashion, and is running a bit late. Because her hotel is a bit further away. However, it doesn't seem to have bothered the crowds. There's still loads of people streaming in to line the streets here in Windsor. Earlier you pointed out that the royals haven't invited many people in politics, and that's a step away. And what is interesting is that the royals don't have a right to vote. They don't vote, and they purposely try to stay apolitical, even though the Obamas were great friends with Prince Harry. In many ways, it was seen as a decision not to have a political feel to this wedding, so perhaps that's why he didn't get the invite. But as Meghan Markle becomes a British citizen, she too will give up her right to vote just to keep politics out of the royal family. It's something that they've kept to for thousands of years.
Right, of course. And as you pointed out, Mandy, people still streaming into Windsor. We've been hearing reports of about 100,000 people expected to gather. But do you reckon that number might go up as the day proceeds?
I reckon, especially since when people woke up and saw that it would be a glorious sunny day, I think lots of more people might have decided to make the trip up and catch this a historic day. You know, he is in line to the throne, and it's not every day a prince and a princess get married here. So many have decided. Seems to have decided, perhaps last minute, that they will make the trip to Windsor and come to celebrate a historic and exciting day. Prince William and Prince Harry and, of course, Meghan have a special place in the heart of the public. They've really warmed to him. He's seen someone they can relate to. He's made obvious mistakes, but so is everyone. And I think generally people feel like he's the one that people relate to. They've welcomed his bride, and generally people here, the people I've spoken to, just want to wish them the best of days.